We've got a video over on Prager U with Ricky Gervais saying things that I'm not exactly sure that Dennis Prager would actually agree with if he had the courage or the ability to really think about it deeply. But if it gets the message out, I guess it really doesn't matter which platform broadcasts the truth. So let's go see what Ricky has to say about censorship and why the guilty parties, of which there are unfortunately many, have so many rational problems. This is not your typical PragerU video, and I had no idea what I was getting into when I decided to give it a shot. Normally, when I go look at these videos, I will just pick things that I think look sort of interesting, and then I don't actually watch the entire video until I sit down to write my script. However, when I watched this, I found that it's absolutely true. One of the first things I've ever seen on Prager that I can say that I actually agreed with, and it has a powerful message that needs to be heard, so whether or not it's one of my normal videos, I'm doing it anyway. It's amazing how closely aligned religion and politics are in their methodology these days. And that's not really something to be proud of. So let's go hear Ricky talk and find out why we're in the mess that we're in. I hope you enjoy it.
It's a really weird thing that there's this new trendy myth that people who want free speech want it to say awful things all the time. This just isn't true. It protects everyone.
And he's absolutely right. Because the one thing I've said repeatedly around here is that the only way to address speech that you don't like is with more speech. It is not through censorship. It's not through cancel culture. It's through addressing the things that are said and proving that they are wrong. Now, one of the big problems that we tend to have is that the people who are engaged in these non-free speech options, they don't tend to be very smart. This isn't about, well, I don't think the things that you are saying are correct. It's, I don't like it, and I want you to shut up. And my response to that is hell no.
But the two catastrophic problems with the term hate speech is, one, what constitutes hate speech? Everyone disagrees. There is no consensus on what hate speech is.
And that's true. Hate speech is whatever the party in power happens to be against at this particular moment in time. So if you go to Islamic majority countries, you will always find that hate speech is anything that goes against the Muslim majority. Yet if those exact same words were used against Christians or atheists or any other group, they'd be perfectly fine. It's only hate speech when you don't like it. There is no definition that fits all situations.
Right? And two, who decides? And there's the real rub. Because obviously the people who think they want to close down free speech because it's bad are the fascists.
Yep, that's also true. In fact, you just have to look at who is pushing this kind of stuff, and it's always the fascists and the authoritarians. But those words get tossed around by a lot of dumb people without understanding what any of it means, so let's sort that out first. A fascist, according to the dictionary, is a political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation, and often race, above the individual, and that stands for a centralized, autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. Now who does that sound like these days? I don't know. So, what about authoritarian? Again, if we go to the dictionary, it says, of, relating to, or favoring a concentration of power in a leader or an elite not constitutionally responsible to the people. Again, who does that sound like? You've got people who are trying to rely entirely on the government and trying to shut the opposition up. It's not that hard to see which side is actually trying to do that. And it's not my side.
It's a really weird, mixed up idea that these people hide behind the shield of goodness. We're good, we're social justice, we're doing this for good, and what we say goes.
Hey Ricky, when you're right, you're right. And as much as I hate doing overly political content on this channel, in fact, I've thought a couple of times about creating another channel just for political material, it really has to be said. You've got one side of the political spectrum that is saying, we know what's best for you. Of course, they're not going to ask any of the people that they've decided that they represent actually what they want because, those people are children and unable to have their own thoughts and desires according to them. So they declare that they know what social justice is and how they can implement it, and nobody actually pays attention to the so-called oppressed. And when they white knight all over the place and pretend that they're on the side of the angels, you're not actually allowed to disagree. Meanwhile, the people that these idiots have declared themselves the protectors of, their lives are burning down around their ears. It sure doesn't look like they have anyone's best interests at heart but their own, does it?
And they don't realise how corrupt and wrong that is.
No, they don't. Because like so many people, and the religious fit into this perfectly, they don't care about reality. They are behaving like children. I mean, historically, isn't that how Christianity worked? And Islam. I mean, Islam is still doing it to this day in a lot of places. We're going to tell you what you have to believe and what you have to do, and if you disagree, we're going to kill you. We will destroy you utterly. And so they throw gay people off of roofs, they burn down the property of the non-believers, or hey, even other believers if they don't think they get it quite right. I mean, the amount of sectarian violence in Islam is absurd. But Christians are no different. Remember the Catholic versus Protestant violence in Northern Ireland for many years. You're not worshiping my God my way, so, die. Honestly, how dumb is all of this?
It is mob rule, and I think that's what would compromise the comedy. Not that some people wouldn't love it and get it, it's that the people in charge would be bullied.
And Ricky has it right once again. And that's really what's going on out there right now. We're upset, and we're just gonna burn shit down. Well, no, that's not how any of this actually works. But when you get a bunch of jackbooted thugs in masks thinking that anonymity gives them permission to do anything that they want, what do you expect? And you do notice who they look like, right? Who they've modeled their look after, right? It's ISIS fighters. It's terrorists. Because that's what these people are. Funny how that works, huh?
Not forget, there are loads of caveats to free speech already, but I agree with all of them. Libel, slander, watersheds, protection of children's rights, food additives, all these things are already in place. What's not in place and what's never should be in place is that you mustn't say something that someone somewhere might find offensive.
Nope, yet that's the world we live in, and it isn't just in the political realm. The religious have their blasphemy laws, designed to keep them from being offended by the incorrect opinions of others. Now, that doesn't stop them from saying whatever the hell they want about everyone else under the guise of free speech. Nope, all of the restrictions are aimed at the infidels. They can't insult us, but we can insult them. But isn't this the same damn thing going on in politics? We can call you anything that we want, true or not, but you can't use any term against us that hasn't been run through our politically correct filter. How people miss the obvious correlation here is completely beyond me.
Because someone somewhere will find everything offensive. And as I've said so many times, just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right.
No, it doesn't. In fact, it almost certainly means that you're wrong. And this goes back to childish, overly emotional behavior that it seems like we've been talking about on this channel forever. If the only thing you can do is wear your emotions on your sleeve and never think about the things that ought to be going through your head, ought to be because most of these people's heads are completely empty, then you've got something severely wrong with you, both emotionally and intellectually, and your maturity level is suspect as well. But that's what happens when you get involved in these cults, where emotion and thought control are absolutely required, and you either exercise truththink or you get ostracized from the group, and then they try to kill you. And religion has been doing this forever. Philippians 4:8 says, "Finally, believers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable and worthy of respect, whatever is right and confirmed by God's word, whatever is pure and wholesome, whatever is lovely and brings peace, whatever is admirable and of good repute, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think continually on these things." Yeah, mind control. Whatever is confirmed by God's word, meaning whatever the hell you want to believe, think about that constantly and don't let all those pesky little facts get in the way. Maintain your mental purity at all costs, even if it's all complete nonsense in the end. And who else is doing that today? Let's think about that.
And now I don't want to be lumped in with those celebrities who lecture people, who think they're above everything just because they've got a platform. I mean, it really works both ways. And the worry now is social media amplifies everything.
Yes, it does. Because now you have faceless, anonymous people online telling you what to think about absolutely everything. They don't have to justify it. They just expect that if you want to be one of the cool kids, you're going to go along with the crowd and not think about it too much. And that's why we have these stupid influencers. Now, I'm not talking about celebrities who are already living in a ridiculous little bubble, insulated against reality, but I'm talking about people who think that they get to dictate what everyone wears and what everyone eats and what everyone watches and how everyone thinks. Well, screw them. If you pay any attention to them at all, you are a moron. Learn to think for yourself. Well, first, learn to think at all. Learn to look at the world around you and make judgments based on the evidence at hand. Your feelings don't matter. Only reality does. But that's not how most people, especially most young people, work these days, is it? And I'm not saying that it's been great in the past, but today, holy shit, they're begging people to lead them around by the nose and think for them. You people have problems. Grow up.
If you're mildly left wing on Twitter, you're suddenly Trotsky. Right? Right? And if you're mildly conservative, you're Hitler.
You're a Nazi,
and if you're centrist and you look at both arguments, you're a coward.
Because the world is absurdly politically deadlocked. Of course, in a lot of places, it's religiously deadlocked too, but let's deal with politics first. If people cannot talk to each other like mature, intelligent adults who care about the evidence, how in the hell do you think you're going to come to any compromises? Oh right, nobody wants to compromise. It's a bunch of people throwing childish temper tantrums trying to get their own way. That's not why I voted anyone into office. I don't want you to mindlessly follow party politics for any party at all. I want you to do what is best for the American people. But you don't want to do that because the public is so ridiculously reactionary that the second that you do anything that falls outside of a very narrow set of political beliefs, everyone turns on you and drags you out into the street and strings you up. Sometimes literally, which happens in religion all the time if you notice. Seriously, just go look at some heavily religious countries and see how many times they assassinate or lynch their political leaders for religious reasons. Because it's constant. These people are all children. They really are. Now let's talk truth for a second. The only real issue with PragerU, other than the fact that Dennis Prager is a complete idiot, is that you never really know what you're going to get in any of their videos. This one, amazingly enough, I actually agreed with near universally. But hey, I'm a fan of Ricky Gervais in general, so that's not really that surprising. And he's got the balls to stand up and be honest, whereas most of Hollywood has their fingers in the air, testing which way the wind is blowing at the moment before they open their mouths and say something potentially stupid. It actually amazes me that they'd put this on their channel when Dennis Prager vocally opposed the legalization of gay marriage, and while I guess he's been pretty outspoken against censorship in general, most of it seems to be only when it directly impacts him and his farcical university. Because religion has always censored. Always. The second it gets the political clout to shut the opposition up, invariably that's what it does. They want to keep all of the advantages while keeping anyone else from having them as well. And that's censorship. It goes against the idea that in a free marketplace of ideas, the best ideas will rise to the top and the worst will invariably fall to the bottom. And you notice that the ones that tend to have the worst ideas, the ones that are not supported by logic, reason, or evidence, the ones that are based almost entirely on emotion, they tend to be opposed to that. Because I think they realize that in a truly free marketplace, their ideas would never survive, so they have to be imposed on everyone else, often through threats of violence and social disfellowshipping, so they can get their way without ever having to earn it. Ricky Gervais is right. I've been saying the exact same thing since day one, but nobody wants to listen, do they? Maybe that fact says a lot more about the political and religious idiots than anything else. If you're afraid of the free marketplace of ideas, then maybe you have a reason to be.